Folks, welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 3773 East Broadway. This is a live edition of the Jake Feinberg Show, coming on Power Talk. Thank you so much for making us part of your day today, and beautiful to come to a day's end with a monster musician, master musician. I have some feelings, instincts about when his career started and as it related to the death of the record industry, but I do know that he played spiritual music with a lot of the forefathers of R&B and soul, and also bebop and melodic improvisation. It's been a long time coming. Bruce Forman, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Jake, it's great to be here. I figured it would take something like a pandemic to get me on this show, so I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, man. It's I want to, we have a game on this program called Name That Voice. I want you to take a listen to this, and then we'll come back and break it down.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Jack's of Sutter Street was amazing. They not only had music every night from 9 to 1, they would open up again in the morning like at 6 o'clock and go to noon.
Oh my goodness.
Of course, there was hours in between that. There was a point that I worked 7 days a week for about 3 years. And I used to go to all of Jack's things because that's where I got to play with all the organ players, and I ended up getting most of the morning gigs because the guys didn't want to get up in the morning. So I got to work with, actually I did work with Merle, not only in that, but other stuff, and Richard Groove Holmes, and of course Chester Thompson. Man, that was a joy. I mean, he was technically like a freak of nature. He was just ambidextrous. Could play solo in one hand, chords in the other, and the bass line with his feet.
Did you play with... Want to take a guess at who that is?
Well, yeah, I kind of do, but it's I'm blanking here.
Yeah, and I don't...
Tell me who it is.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was... And I'm trying to get a tonal center for Bruce Forman and figure out that was Michael Howell.
Yeah, I knew Michael, but not very well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I knew him, of course.
What I'm curious about, the reason I play that for you is, where did you learn to play with the black music, with the black musicians?
Well, in right there in San Francisco. A lot of the same guys he's talking about. I played with Chester Thompson, played a lot with Ed Kelly, played a lot with Richard Dorsey. I played a lot with Larry Bradford. I was with him for a long time.
Oh, my God, dude. Dude is a badass, man.
Oh, man. Well, we had a band together. I think I was in his band for about 4 years. And he was a freak of nature, that guy. And, of course, Ed Kelly and I had a band together for a long time, and in San Francisco, I don't need to tell you, was just at that time, it was, Bishop Norman Williams was there playing, and Bobby Hutcherson lived there, Woody Shaw lived there, Joe Henderson lived there, George Cables lived there. It was quite a mecca. I was lucky to be growing up in that town, really.
In another part of the interview that I did, that was actually an interview I did with Michael from 2011, so I feel so humbled to be able to now come full circle with Bruce Forman. But, do you stretch back to the days of the Red Balloon where Ed Kelly used to play? Or were you more did you meet him in the East Bay?
In the East Bay. It was Mr. Majors.
Mr. Majors. Holy cow.
Do you remember that?
No, dude, I was born in 78. I was born in 78.
Shit, you don't remember.
Dude, this is why, dude, you're right there, man. You're in this mercurial pocket of incredible music. And it's and I just remember finding this record on Muse from the early 80s, and it was you and Eddie and Ed Kelly. I'm like, that Bruce Forman is a badass. That is all I needed to know when I saw that record.
Yeah, well, that was a great band. We had a lot of fun those years doing that. But I met Ed out at Mr. Majors, I think, or actually, I think when I was in high school, he came and played at my school. I played at the school. The school was a complete meltdown failure, but the music thing was happening.
Wait, what was it, like one of those alternative schools?
No, it was called Polytechnic High School. It was right across from Kezar Stadium.
Holy cow!
It's been torn down now.
Oh my God!
But they'd gone. They had some riots and shit when I got there, and they had hall guards and stuff, and we would. But the music scene, the two music teachers there were really great players, and we had hall guards, and they were great players. They were professional jazz musicians. That was their day gig, walking around the hall.
Who were they? Who? Give me some names, dude. Who were?
I forget their names, man. A couple of great horn players.
Oh
and
my!
They would play with us, and then one of the history teachers was a decent bass player, but we already had a bass player student who was better than him, a guy named Ratso Harris. I don't know if
oh, dude, no, dude, 1750 Arch Records, man, with freaking
Kenny Werner.
Well, no, Tom Buckner, Denny Zeitlin. He did a ridiculous album with Denny Zeitlin.
Right.
Unreal. Dude.
Right.
Ratso's a fucking badass.
Right. Well, Ratso, was like a year ahead of me in school.
Oh my God, this is
and the guys would come over and play. Guys from the good high school, Lowell, would come over and play with us. And once we were playing, and Ed Kelly came over and did a demonstration of the Hammond organ, the church style organ.
Oh, this is. I mean, where? This was America. This was America. This was America.
Yeah, this was downtown. This was San Francisco, right across from Golden Gate Park, Kezar Stadium.
No, the idea of bringing this is the most important thing. Explain why he was he wasn't demoing a model of the B3, but he was demoing the power of it and he was in the club at that time. That's the thing that's crazy.
Right, and he came into the school. Or the school had one, and he came in and played it. And it basically was a jam session.
What?
And Larry was just, whereas Ed was all taste and perfection, soul. Larry was just like a Ferrari on that thing, like Jimmy Smith would have been pissed off to hear that shit. And
dude, he was firing on all cylinders. I'm such a Bradford cat.
Yeah, he was so badass.
Oh my God, dude.
And then a little bit I know, like a year or two later, I'd be in his band and we'd be working together. But
holy cow.
Yeah, and that's where I met Ed. And Ed said, "Hey, you ought to come out and make the jam session on Sundays." And so I went over to Mr. Majors and played with him there. And then there was a guy in town named Richard Dorsey, and I can't find anything about him. He was big. He was a heavy dude. He was kind of a
Richard Dorsey, man. That name is not on my radar, dude.
He was a real showman. He went by
oh my God, dude! This is so
politically incorrect to say now.
Yeah, I know.
I could not say the name that Richard called himself, and and
he was out there, man.
Kind of wrote. He was the Liberace, let's say. You can extrapolate from there, and he sang and played. I think he was gay, probably, and he could do the church thing and the jazz thing, and Manny Boyd was on the gig, and Eddie Marshall was on the gig.
Manny Boyd?
Yeah.
Dude, Manny Boyd is smiling from. I don't think he's still with us, right? I mean, that dude.
I don't think so.
That Manny Boyd. I mean, holy cow, that's insane.
He's on all those Bobby Hutcherson records. Yeah.
I mean, he's on this Woody Shaw record, Song of Songs. That's just doesn't have a guitar on that, but it's like Sunship Theus is on drums, Skipper on bass. It's like Manny Boyd is.
It was when Eddie was living out when Woody was living out on the West Coast, man.
Oh my God.
And in San Francisco, and so that band was I couldn't believe it. I mean, I think I was just out of high school playing in that band. And he taught me a lot of stuff, man. He was, it was some heavy times.
Well, I just want to get the chronology. You're talking about Bradford. You came right out of high school, you were with Bradford.
Oh, no, then I'm talking about Richard Dorsey. I played in both their bands.
Oh, so you started with Dorsey. Yeah.
I think Dorsey was first, but I think I did them both kind of at the same time, too. But I ended up working almost full-time with Larry. We'd get these silly-ass gigs, man, like, Holiday Inns, and the Velvet Turtle, and all these kind of, like,
Oh, God, dude. I'd be at every one of those gigs, dude. Every one.
Yeah, and then we would just play. I mean, with Larry, you'd be playing Earth, Wind, and Fire 1 second, then you'd be playing Giant Steps, then you'd be playing something else. You'd be playing some, back at the Chicken Shack, and you're playing, and then you're playing salsa. I mean, he could do everything on that organ. And he was crazy. He was crazy, and they tolerated us somehow. I mean, thinking back, I can't believe how they let us get away with the shit we were playing.
Well, but think about people's mindsets. What you were playing was so ear-stretching in terms of variety. Normal in today's world, people's ears are locked because of the quantized rhythm, because of digital beats being crunched into people's ears. So that music would be too dissident for today's modern ear. But back then, it was like, okay, it's a little bit on the edge, but I mean, there's soul. There's soul. That's the point. There was soul.
Yeah, and it was energy.
Energy, soul, man. Energy, dude. Really heavy pulse and tension and release. But I mean, you would say like, you did not go to the academy. I mean, you went to high school for music, but you were a street scholar. Did you play Jack's on Sutter, or was that place closed by the time that you got out?
No, I played that place. Sure.
Oh my God, with Herschel Davis?
Not with Herschel. No, who did I play with? I think I played with Pony Poindexter.
See, that's what I'm saying. I mean, that is a bop ledge. I mean that. So, but Bop City, did you get up on the bandstand there or no?
No, I never made Bop City.
Okay, so that's pre-Forman, but really. Jack's was what was the mystique? Jack's was a match. Can you talk about what you learned early on from Bradford? And I guess here's what I'm trying to get at is like I saw Kenny Barron, Ron Carter, and Billy Cobham play an acoustic trio 2 years ago in Mesa, and I was doing some video of it on stage. It was sound check. And you had all these techs walking around like, oh, do you need that turned up, Mr. Barron? Or, they're talking to Mr. Mr. Carter, you need that? And none of those guys were saying a word. They said nothing. And so slowly, magically, after like a few seconds, you see everybody just leave the stage and they start to go into like wasn't Corcovado, it was some classic standard, and they just start to burn. And then after they finished, then they said what they needed. But it was the black musical aesthetic. What is, in your mind, I couldn't ask a better person, what is that? Because it is discernibly more visceral and full of energy, I would say.
Yeah, it's weird, I mean, I never thought of it in terms of black or white, but, obviously, it's just... if I had to put words to it, and believe me, there's a lot of white guys that would fit it over into what we would call the black way of thinking, and a lot of brothers that would be over in the white way of thinking. I mean, I just find it to be a lot less talking about it and a lot more doing it.
and so what is that? And so how does that relate to creating spiritual music? I think that's the key. The less verbal.
Well, I was just so in love with two things with jazz. One was, of course, the sound of the music and the way it made me feel, and the other thing was the community of people that played it.
Right.
It's like it was impossible to separate the person from the music. When you know these guys, their personality was embedded in their playing was embedded in their personality, white and black. you know, and it was like you were part of this amazing club of eccentric geniuses, you know, who were social misfits for sure.
Sure.
And it was like the music was magic somehow, through study of your instrument and study of theory, you know, which we all did on our own, and study of what the masters have done before us, but as much through osmosis of just being around the other guys and sharing and competing and listening and all those things, this thing just kind of grows. It's like a seed that's the sunshine in the water that it needs to grow. That's where you see this evolution happen. And you know, I mean, I studied with everybody I've ever played with, everybody I've ever listened to, everybody I've ever talked to. I can honestly say I studied with them because everything about them was music. The way they stirred their fucking coffee was music. You know what I mean? The rhythm, the touch they used.
Right.
Dinner, the way they talked about their wife or girlfriend. You know what I mean? The way they put their instrument away. It was all part of this thing, you know, that made the music life. I mean,
that's going to be the forward of my next book, dude. I mean, that is the sickest thing I've ever heard in my life. I mean, it's, you said their personality was embedded in their playing.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem, but I want to say this is why we got to get down to business with Bruce Forman. Is here's the deal: we have a homogenization of sound in modern melodic improvisation. You can't tell who anybody is. Back then, you'd slit your wrists if someone came up to you and said, "Hey, man, you sounded great. You sounded just like so and so." Why did everybody pride themselves on individual sound?
You know, I don't know that's just. I don't know if they prided themselves on it. That was just accepted the way it had to be. I mean, I had a talk with a student of mine today about not putting transcriptions up on Facebook or whatever. You know, having some self-respect, and you know, like. What do you mean?
What do you mean? Wait. What do you mean? What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? That's interesting. What do you mean?
Okay, John. I mean, everybody I played with knew John Coltrane solos, had studied them, had learned in parts of them, if not whole. Ever were allowed to play them in public. That was stealing the shit. No, you're supposed to do your shit.
Oh,
and
shit.
Richard Dorsey actually busted me one day, I mean, very early in my life,
Whoa.
in a very humiliating, embarrassing moment, which I'll share with you. And
Please.
Danny Boyd and Eddie Marshall were both there. On the gig, I must have been really listening to Wes that afternoon, you know, and checking Wes out.
Yeah.
So I came to a solo, and I used my thumb, and I did the old, you know, single lines, octaves, chords, you know, and I was just getting into it, you know, and doing all those little Wes-isms that we love so much. And in the middle of a chorus, like, Richard stopped playing. And then, of course, when he stopped, Eddie stopped, you know, and they're all just sort of like, and I kind of kept playing, thinking, well, maybe they just want me to play by myself. But then it was like he stopped in the middle of the chorus. They usually stop at the beginning.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And I just kind of fizzled out after a few bars. And I looked over at him, and he looked at me. He said, "Bruce, you know," he said, "I hired you. I didn't hire Wes Montgomery."
Oh.
He said, if I wanted to play, if you want to play with your records, you can just go home.
Go play with your records.
If you want to play the gig, we're here right now.
Wow.
And I mean, he said this on a microphone so the audience could hear it.
No way.
No way. Yeah.
Yo,
like,
Forman, dude,
said,
oh my.
Said, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? And I said, I'm on the gig. And he started playing right where he stopped, and we just took off after that.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
You know, at the end of that set, I went looking for him, you know, because I was horrified, embarrassed, pissed off. I wanted to beat him up or to apologize.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was going to say, you know. I just went looking for him. And I couldn't find that motherfucker if I, he was nowhere to be found. That guy had disappeared. And sure enough, next time I saw him, he was already starting the next set.
Wow.
And he knew I was looking for him.
Well, I mean, that is one of the, and the truth is,
there's nothing to say. He said everything. What was I going to say to him? Nothing. Thank you for the lesson is what I should have said, but I was probably, my ego and my embarrassment would have been so much that I would have threatened him or something. I don't know. Or wanted to fight him, and it's like, the truth is what he was saying is like, yeah, study Wes. And it's okay to evoke his spirit. And it's okay to have people that you admire. But you got to be yourself. And if we're all going to be playing this music in real time, living life, because the music's got to be for right now. It can't be for about yesterday. And it can't be about tomorrow. It's not jazz if it's not. And and he just taught me a lesson, man, with a huge, extra scoop of humiliation on top of it.
Well, I mean, but listen, I've interviewed the great drummer Denny Sywell from the original Wings band, and Lou Donaldson kicked him off the bandstand at a black club in Chicago because he couldn't play the shuffle the right way. Mike Wolf, who I think is a contemporary of yours or around the same age.
He's a little older than me, but he was around San Francisco at the time.
He said that a lot of the brothers, and Mike obviously had his, he's his own person. We all are. But, he said sometimes some people, a couple of them, being a white cat, again, I go back to this skin color issue, and I don't believe in racism. I believe we're all one human race, but we have cultural bias. But the point is that with the Booker T. Washington Hotel and, sort of this still the remnants of the Black Power movement, Max Roach, advocacy, that anybody with a white skin trying to play black people's music, Mike Wolf said that a lot of times guys would try to yell at him, get in his head, tell him he sucked. But he had to be mentally strong. And I know that's not what Dorsey was doing to you, but you had to be a little bit crazy and overconfident to throw yourself into that scene.
Totally. I mean, but you might, I guess, as an observer, you would say that. But as a person who was just in love.
Yeah. Not even as an observer, as somebody who wasn't even birthed on the planet. That's what that's the way I fantasize about this magical pocket of time when we were all one. I mean, and that's the point. I mean, not that it was perfect, and I mean, I'm still trying to figure out why your school. I mean, well, I guess high school in the early '70s would have been. Was the hate really? What was the hate like at that time?
Well, my school was mostly black, so
Yes,
there were. My first couple of days there, they all tested me out, and they didn't do nothing. And once I was there playing music and I found my people, we were all cool.
Yeah, that's so cool, man.
I didn't have any more problems.
Oh, no wonder, dude. You never knew any different.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I really, I was chasing the music, and I'm fairly big, so I guess no one's going to really just, pick on me, unless they really want to do something. But I'm not violent. I don't know. Believe me, the prejudice and the racism was just as strong as you could imagine back then.
Even in San Francisco?
Oh yeah, the town had gone through huge stuff in the late '60s, and
right. Well, I just put out a book on yeah.
Granted, I was in their world; they weren't in my world.
I dig.
It was only 100. It was like 100 or a million times easier for me being in their world than it would have been for them to come to, my supposed world. That's all I can say.
How did you wind up going to that school?
Okay, well, it's kind of a long story. I grew up in Texas. My parents got divorced. I went to a really good prep school when I was young. Played classical piano. My mom divorced my dad. She hated Texas. You know, she hated, especially Imagine Texas in the '60s.
I can actually.
I mean, I was living in Dallas when Kennedy was shot. I was in school. You know, so
Jesus.
and so we moved to California as soon as the divorce was settled. She took us and we split. And she's an artist, and we ended up in San Francisco. And she had black friends in Dallas. You know, she was an artist, so she was hanging on the scene. And, you know, I mean, they were all, you know, I mean, nothing was weird about it to me. And then we moved to this neighborhood in San Francisco where I had two options of schools to go to. And one was predominantly Latin and one was predominantly black. But the only reason I went to the one I did was because it had a thing. They'd had some unrest, student unrest, riots, whatever you want to call it, and they changed to this thing called student-directed curriculum, whereas basically it was more like contract ed rather than class work and stuff. It was a little more free, you know.
Yeah, so that the students might conform because if they were doing stuff that they got off on. Yeah.
Structured.
Yeah, I dig.
It was less structured.
Yeah.
And that really appealed to me because I'd come from a super highly structured school in Texas. So I figured I wanted to try that. And that's how I ended up in that school. That's how I ended up with Ratso and Heard Bird and found and all those cats that we played with in school. And then I met, you know, and I just kind of chased the music serious hard from there. You know, I mean, we already could play a little bit, but that's where I got my jazz education and cultural education.
It's phenomenal you had the foresight to recognize that you didn't need any more structure and you needed that.
Well, I mean, you know, hey, ask any 14-year-old kid; they don't want structure.
Well, no, but I'm talking no. I dig. I'm talking more. I'm talking, and that's not for everybody. I was a pretty introverted cat. I mean, I was extroverted but introverted. But let me be clear. The musical. I mean, you learned to swing because you went to that school.
You know, I mean, that started, sure. Yeah, I mean, my life would never have been what it is had I not gone.
Exactly, and that's the magic of Bruce Forman. You know, we got a game called Name That Tune. I'm gonna throw this tune and see if you can get this. You're playing. See if you can pan it, and we'll come back.
Okay.
Music on the Jake Feinberg Show brought to you by Abbott Taylor Jewelers, Dr. Diggs of Butch Diggs Dental, and Craig Pretzinger of Allstate Insurance, and we thank them so much for their support. So we can play that for people like Bruce Forman. What is that, man?
Well, I know the song. Who played it?
This almost brought a tear to my eye this afternoon, seeing your deference. First of all, this was a live performance, part of the Palo Alto Jazz Alliance, the venerable Herb Wong, with the sickest rhythm section ever of Seward McCain and Johnny Ray on brushes. And then
Cool.
Eddie Duran, Duncan James, and Bruce Forman, and that was you blazing. Dude, chorus, this is where the rubber meets the road is Paul, like Duke Ellington gave Paul Gonzalez and he gave Carney these great solos. They could blow over the top of it, led into sort of improvisational bebop with Monk and Dizzy and those cats. And how have you always tried to chart the music? I mean, you kind of came in during the beautiful time of like that early, I hate that term, but like that fusion music with Weather Report and all that stuff. But how have you tried to extend musical vocabulary in your career?
Well, first of all, back to the original question. That song was "Once I Loved" by Joe Beam.
Thank you. I'm not great with songs.
Yeah, we don't want people to think that I got away with anything out here.
No one's going to have that problem. But anyway, you go ahead, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It was real interesting listening to that. I mean, obviously, I can hear, like I say, you could hear this guy has listened to Wes and is inspired by Wes, but you'd no sooner think that was Wes Montgomery than you'd think it was, like Minnie Pearl.
Yeah, it was you. It was you. It was freaking Bruce Forman, dude.
Right. And I'm proud of that part of that. Basically what's weird is just the music of swing and bebop just grabs me, and of course of blues, bebop, swing, and blues, which of course stretches into soul and rhythm and blues, and hard bop to a certain extent as well, But my real language of melody comes from bebop and swing, and I've always been drawn to thematic players who kind of. Or thematic music that's melodic to my ears. While Weather Report, everybody went crazy with Weather Report and fusion, and I dabbled. I put my toe in the pool a little bit.
Sure.
And played with some bands like that. I never really resonated with that music. It never felt authentic to me. For me, I mean, I love listening to it, but I never liked it enough to want to really throw myself. And it was like the thing. I mean, I was kind of holding on to music of the past in a certain way. Being at that age, a young age, where you're supposed to be contemporary, and everybody was going down that fusion Weather Report, Mahavishnu, place.
Return to Forever.
Which I love, Return to Forever, the Robin Ford, and believe me, I was at Robin Ford's gigs all the time. If he was playing, I was listening.
Right.
I never wanted to play that, to me, and what really basically put the nail in the coffin of my fusion life was I was on the road with Richie Cole and Eddie Jefferson a lot at that time.
Wow.
And I was, playing bebop with those guys, but I was still playing some fusion gigs in L.A. I was down there some, and got some loud equipment because you needed it. And when Eddie got murdered, was like the last day I played fusion. What I would call jazz fusion seriously. Considering
who got murdered.
When Eddie Jefferson was murdered.
I'm sorry, I don't know anything, but I didn't know that.
Oh, Okay. Eddie Jefferson. Do you know who Eddie Jefferson was? Okay,
Absolutely. I mean, dude, the dude. I mean, one of the baddest cats. I didn't know his demise was that. Oh, Jesus.
Oh no, he was murdered in 1980, I believe. I think that was the year. I was on the tour with him in Chicago, with him and Richie, and then I came back to the West Coast, and they went on to Detroit, and that's when it happened in Detroit. But when that happened, it just made me realize, the end could come anytime. I'm just going to, I realize I'm playing bebop and straight ahead because I love it. I realize I'm playing fusion because I think I'm supposed to do it, and it's good for my career or something, what I mean? And I just didn't have my heart in it the way a guy like Larry Carlton or John McLaughlin or Robin Ford did. You know what I mean? Those guys, that's their voice. They're brilliant. I go hear them. I admire them. But, that's not the way I hear it. And so, but being younger than them and kind of following in the, you know what I mean? You're always second guessing who you are and what the right thing to do.
No, I respect. I mean, I want to know this though. Although, I know you were a little bit on the young side, but I know that I'm praying. I'm going to give you a few names here. Terry Haggerty, John Cipollina, Jerry Miller from Moby Grape. Did any of those were the first rock guitar players in the Bay Area, and I know you probably were still in Texas, but were you influenced at all by Quicksilver or by the Sons of Champ?
Not really.
So
Not really. I later became, I love the Sons.
The Sons are freaking ridiculous, man.
I know, and I used to go listen to them at Winterland when I was a kid in high school.
Oh my God, are you go to see, because they were the most sophisticated band out of all those bands.
I know. Oh, and I loved it. The Sons were. I mean, and I loved Terry's playing. I guess you'd have to say I was somewhat influenced because I listened to him a lot.
So yeah, you were into because you dug Haggerty. I mean, Santana, Garcia, Forman. You guys were all influenced by that. What was he doing? He was like a frenetic, psychedelic bebop R&B cat.
Yeah, he was just whacked out. It was just crazy. And I'm glad to say, I mean, we've become friends.
Oh, that's so cool, man. I love Terry, man.
Yeah. And so sure, I mean, it's all in there, you know what I mean? It's like it's funny, you have influences and some are active and some are passive. You know what I mean? Like you go down the street and you hear music and it influences you. You might not sit down and figure out what it is or sit and think about playing it or anything, but you're hearing it. And it's influencing you because you're on Earth and you're a human being, and if you're paying attention, you get it. There's those passive influences that are there, and then there's the active ones, and and that's just kind of all make the stew up of who a human being is.
Do you think, just your opinion? I mean, there's no right or wrong answer. I mean, what Dorsey did to you that night was probably I'm not saying important. It was, does that even exist today?
Not so much.
Because think about it. I just want to be clear about something. The reason I asked that question is because, you know what, listening to that with Seward and Johnny Ray, and you were just peppering people with sequences of ideas that were all your own. And that was ingrained in you from the beginning. Do not comp. Be yourself. And now it's like there's so much information out there. We're saturated with it. And I also, even though you were a classical pianist, I feel like you learned guitar. Well, anyway, you had sight training, but I do believe a lot of the cats that were ear trained first before they learned to sight read, their ears are huge. And the reason there's a homogenization of sound today is because cats are learning to read music before they can hear it. And that's the problem.
Interesting. I never thought of that in those terms.
Gary Bartz told me that. That's not my idea. But I mean, he sees kids coming out sounding like their professors, and I just wonder how you try in this day and age when you're not going to get. You got an education in one night at a bar. You didn't have to pay any money for it, and it's like that education was priceless. Looking back on it, and I just wonder how you try to encourage your students in a softer, gentler society and at different time how to develop their own individual sound?
Well, I really encourage it. You're right. I am way softer and gentler than that experience was, or I got to take numerous others. I mean, we could make an hour show out of
The
many,
tongue lash. No, it was just
many similar moments. Okay, where they were oftentimes bordering on violence.
Jesus. Wait, did Bradford light you up ever?
Well,
Dude,
no,
Larry, what? I mean, wait. So how? Wait, I got to ask you a question. What happened to Larry Bradford? Because Johnny Talbot gets all the publicity in my mind. Sly gets all the publicity. Why did Bradford have an early demise? Why doesn't he even ever get any mention?
I worked with him for like those 3 or 4 years, and then it just sort of fell apart. The money got to the point where the money was too funny, and the gigs were starting to fall through, and I was moving on to playing with other people. You know what I mean? So
sure.
And and so it was just a natural thing. I don't know why he isn't known as like one of the world's greatest musicians, because in my mind, I played with dozens and dozens of them, and none were more talented than him.
That is a statement. That is a really heavy statement.
I don't even know if he's still alive. I hope he is. Did you have female singers in that band? Well, occasionally a singer would do a gig with us, but no, it was an organ trio, just organ, guitar, and drums.
I'm going to read this from the, I'm sure a man that you know, a dear friend of mine, and praying for him every day, because we need people like him, is the drummer Larry Vann. And he said,
"Oh yeah,
the main clubs in Oakland were the Continental, the Showcase, and the Sportsman. That's where everybody cut their teeth at. They were owned by Don Barksdale, the Bay Area basketball star. Anybody that you could think of came on that circuit. Lou Rawls, Red Fox, Major Lance. Some of the time I spent with Curtis Mayfield and the Impressions was at the Sportsman's Club." Now, we've made it clear that you felt authentic you were far from a bop purist, but a swing bop fanatic. What about the soul and R&B? And even though you didn't go to the Spanish school, the clave of Salsa de Berkeley. I mean, were you hip to that stuff?
Oh man, well yes. I mean, and that's one of the reasons I cherish the Bay Area. With Larry, we were doing a lot of Sly kind of stuff and Worked Wind and Fire kind of stuff.
Oh, I love it. I freaking love it, dude. You have tapes of that stuff?
Yeah, and we were playing that, and I mean, the Escovedo brothers were in town, and Benny Velarde, and I was playing with those guys too, as much as they would let me.
Can you talk about a time you got to play with them? Did you play with them at Caesar 830?
Yeah, I played at Caesars, and I played a couple of gigs at Bimbo's with them and stuff like that when they would have nights there. And, and I played with another band in town. I forget the name of it, but it was a band that had guys that were both in Benny's band and in Pete's band.
It wasn't called it wasn't Azteca, right?
No, it wasn't Azteca, but I played with a lot of guys who were in that band too.
Jesus.
And I mean, and so I was, and I had a period where I was totally into salsa and just like learning the 3/2 and the 2/3 and the difference between a danzón and a son clave and all that. I mean, I was really deep into it,
Would you go over to those drum circles in Berkeley? Sometimes
there was a big scene already in San Francisco. I played some gigs over there with those guys, but no, the hangs were pretty much San Francisco.
Dude, I mean, you were just having. Oh my God, this is insane.
Yeah, I was just having a great time, and I also, I was playing a lot of, like the organ trio gigs were half jazz, half blues, really. You know what I mean? That's kind of shuffle blues mostly. And there's that, and then there's also, where I did go to Berkeley and Oakland was the Moffat family. I don't know if you know about them, but Charles Moffat and his kids Charles Moffett was like Ornette, played with Ornette. He was in Ornette's world.
Are you kidding?
And,
Wait, he played with Ornette?
And there was, and I didn't play with Ornette. I played with Charles Moffett, who played with Ornette.
He played. No, I'm saying he played. No, he played with Ornette. That's insane. I've never heard of this guy.
Yeah, and he knew Ornette. They were really tight, and they kind of played from the same place.
Right.
And so that whole, what people called out, it really wasn't that out to me. It just seemed like a different way to play. No, I did.
No, dude. I totally did. Dude, I would love to hear this stuff.
Have you ever heard of Sonny Simmons?
That name, yes, but not familiar with the.
Check him out. Okay. Sonny Simmons was on the scene. He was like, he's another Eric Dolphy Ornette kind of guy, and I used to be in his band. I met him through Charles Moffett and Charles Moffett family, and we would sit and just play out, But it wasn't really out. It was everybody listened to each other, and it made complete sense to me. I mean, to a lot of people, they'd call it avant-garde jazz, but how the guys were playing and what was needed, it was a great, great experience. So, I mean, so right from about then, that was my life in San Francisco, and playing just regular. I would do casuals with, all these great players: Eddie Marshall, Vince Ladiano, Al Plank, George DeQuatro, Smith Dobson. All these guys were there, and Bobby was there, Woody Shaw was there, Joe Henderson was there, and George Cables. And so I moved to New York figuring, I was 22, 1978, time to go, and when I got to New York, it was such a different scene, man. It was, of course, the quality of players, the best in the world, but it was very, I guess you'd say, like factional.
Dude, I can't believe you put yourself. You were just in a different ocean at that point.
Right, and so I went to New York, and it was like you were either hung with the bebop guys, or you hung with the Latin guys, or if you wanted to do weddings and club dates, you hung with those guys.
Wow, it's so segregated.
Yeah, it was really like you had to declare which gang you were in or something.
Man.
And the Seventh Avenue South thing was happening at that time. With the Brecker Brothers.
Dude, did you? Because that seemed like that was one club that was trying to be more inclusive than everything else.
Well, but it was still the Cats. It was just cliques.
There was no way that they were not going to give you any oxygen there. You would have caught.
Well, you had to pledge membership, and I was one of these guys that wanted to be part of everything. But if I had to declare one clique, it would have been the bebop straight ahead clique. So.
To me, I want to hear the Bruce Forman tapes with Larry Bradford playing Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Man, we used to play Getaway. That was one of our favorites.
Dude, I'm telling you, man, that is. Listen, we got another Name That Voice for Bruce Forman. I'm throwing all the heavyweights at you. See if you get this voice, and we'll come back.
Okay.
The people, during our time, I got here in 66, 67, so psychologically, during that time, a lot of things that happened during America. You had the civil rights struggle, you had the riots that were burning in many big cities in America. But when we got to San Francisco, I saw, during that time, the logo was peace and love. And when I got here, seeing what I've seen in my life, I felt that. That's what I fell in love with. I fell in love with the place, the people, the music scene. At the time I got here was very inspiring because, amazingly enough, I didn't see this in those times, even in New York, that I saw here in San Francisco. But along with that was this attitude that was so positive. That's what I fell in love with. All the other struggles, the bank and the day gigs and all those things. When you're young, you don't know. You're still hunting. You're still open. As long as you're inspired, you'll always be open. those things like the bank and the day gigs that we have to take, that's something that happens. When we were playing in the clubs, you still had your family you had to take care of. And that was always the case. But number one, before you get to that point, you have to study your craft. You've got the feel. You've got to be able to play with people. And that's the number one thing. You're going to get paid. It's a professional situation. You get paid, you take care of your family the way you're supposed to, whether it's a night gig or a day gig. That part of it always exists, no matter how old you are. It's the love of what you're doing and why you're doing it.
You want to take a guess at who that is?
No, I don't, but that's so beautiful.
Well, that was my and it's so cool to be able to play back my deep archives going into the well for Bruce Forman. That was my interview with none other than Chester Thompson from 2011.
Yeah.
That's how long I've been on this journey for, Bruce. I was scouting out these heroes of authentic music, and what struck me in that was the positivity, the camaraderie, that there was enough to go around. It was a. I'm not saying people lived within their means. I'm saying that it was. There was a lot of sacrifice, and the intentions for so many of those musicians was about the music. It was not about the limo showing up. It wasn't about who gets this or flies first class or all this other support. It was about the music, and that's what you were able to catch that essence, and for that, you've lived a transcendent musical life.
Well, Chester has it so right. It's the music, and it's playing with people, and everybody has their own motivations for things. Some people want, appreciation. Some people are competitive and want to be the best. Some people want,
Right.
want love.
Right.
Some people,
Interesting.
I know that besides the sound of the music, besides just the sound of the music and the feeling of the music, what really drew me to it was the community of it. That these amazing people who we all share this love and this desire to be in it in the moment, and to add our spice to the stew. And it's no one thought of it as a career. It just but it was at a time where we could all make enough money to live. You know what I mean? It was just it was that way. And God, yeah, I haven't seen Chester in so long, man. I didn't really get to work with him as much as I wanted to. I was working a lot more with Ed.
Yeah, no, I just it was like I know Forman was on the.
Recently.
Well, the thing is that for me as just a passionate fan and a guy who likes to play drums, percussion, I can feel the rhythm. Like to be able to go at 2 a.m. and see Rudolph Johnson with Chester Thompson and Herschel Davis, I would have been consciously aware for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
It was you're like, and I just see such a narrowing of vision. I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but I just, these people came along, Bobby Hutcherson, Woody Shaw, Joe Henderson, they came from the original Cats and all those great leaders like Blakey and the Messengers, and it was like a farm system. And I wonder, you're an adaptable cat, but it's just funny because there's almost nothing applicable aside from the great standard tunes and how to play changes, and almost nothing about a current jazz musician's livelihood reflects anything about the way you came up.
Sadly, I have to say that there's a lot of truth in that statement. And I have to tell you the truth. If today I was that age, that 14-year-old kid or that 16-year-old kid.
Yep.
I don't really know that I would have gone for it. I don't know that it would have bitten me,
exactly.
in its current state. I got to be honest with you. I'm not saying I don't love it. I'm not saying I don't appreciate it. I'm not saying I don't support it. But I am saying that I don't know that it would have had the power that it did to change my life, that it did when I was struck by it. I'm grateful for all it's given me. You're right, I'm an adaptable guy. Every day I'm challenged with what the world presents me, and I also believe that what those guys instilled in me was exactly that thing, to be yourself and to make it work, to live in the moment. Improvising means using the tools at hand to create something. And, and I will continue to play my chorus with the changes that I get,
Yeah.
And,
oh, that is so Joe
and
Henderson right there, man.
Right now, we are dealing with probably, I've lived, I'm going to be 64 next week. Mm-hmm. And I've lived through, like I say, I was in Dallas, Texas when Kennedy was shot. I saw the Man on the Moon. I saw Watergate. I saw Martin Luther King, get assassinated. I saw 9/11. I don't know, I can tell you it's every bit as powerful and is going to have a lasting effect on what has to happen. And it challenges all of us who consider ourselves creative artists to define, if we're a musician, define the sound of that. And to also help define where the future must go for us.
Absolutely.
It's
a
responsibility we have.
You damn better believe it, because that's what your forefathers would have. Same. I also want to say that the same way that that community helped build Bruce Forman to be himself, it's the same community, including Dave Brubeck and Jack DeJohnette and Bill Cosby before the world caved in on him, and Bruce Forman, who have helped me find my voice. I sought out authenticity. People are imperfect, clearly, but they help. At 42 years old, I feel the same way, man. This whole thing has been created out of nothing. My knowledge has not come from any books, any apparatus other than you guys. 1,500 plus interviews, and it's like, I know that's the only way that I can contribute positively to society, to the evolution of society. But every artist and creative has to take this this is the ultimate. My generation never really, you were were old enough to get out of the you didn't have to get in the draft. But we never had a draft. 1% of the population fought our wars. We lived through great economic times. We've never sacrificed Gen Xers. And so it's, and for me, this is my purpose, man. And just the same way you had your purpose. And I guess through it all, that's kind of, for those that are seekers that you come across, the musicians that are hunters, that are willing to starve to death like James Gadsden. It's like, literally, it's your job to create individuals who can think for themselves. Because that's the biggest thing right now is you're starting to see the word zombies come up now, more and more. That word is going to become very vogue because we're dealing with people that have nothing going on. There's no critical thinking. There's nothing. And we've just and this whole push to go back out for consumption. Like, you guys weren't over consumers. Bruce Forman was playing gigs, coming home, having chia seeds and oatmeal, and going out to 3 more gigs. But you were living in the city, having a ball, doing your thing, making a little bit of dough. But now it's like we have to open society so that people can go back out and spend money and overconsume and overeat we're just killing ourselves, man. So the only way to push back against that is by being a complete individual, which you've accomplished in your musical career, man.
Right, and as artists or musicians, it's our job to like I say, not only document these times, but also shine the light on the future and where it could go and where we want it to go, because that's who defines the future, and that's who creates the movements that are needed. And, you know, and I'm still here stuck wondering where it's going to go. I mean, I went from a place where I had a year of concerts and my new projects doing, you know,
Sure.
to like, they're all canceled. And my whole life is moved to a different status. And I can sit here and complain that I ain't got no gigs, but that's not going to work. So I've had to move into other ways of bringing my message to the world, because that's my job. And that's what all these guys who gave me their love and their, you know, and their hard work, that's my responsibility now. And so, I mean, I have to find a new way of doing things. I have to learn how to work online. I have to learn, you know, which I always eschewed. I always really felt like my online thing was just there to promote my offline thing.
Yeah, right. I dig.
Yeah, that's how I use my Facebook and all that crap and email, just to get people to know what was happening. You know what I mean? So that they would come out and hang. Because that's where I still believe the community. That's where it's important. But now that's not happening. Now my life is on. I owe it to the people who gave me what I have, and I owe it to the people who look up to me, my students, you know, in the next generation.
Well, let me just tell you a couple things. I want to tell you,
not make it a wasted one. You know what I mean?
No.
The music, the world can't take one generation that just gave up because it got dealt a bad hand. No, you know, you get, like I say, you play the changes you got, and you make something out of it.
Yeah, like Joe Sample. He said, you know, when he was in the Nighthawks, like he'd be going club to club, and that was when the organ, like Ed Kelly, when the organ was in the club, it came out of the church into the club, and he's like, what kind of dog du jour am I going to have tonight, you know? How many broken keys, you know? And I think that, you know, I got a couple pieces of advice if you want to take it, because like most creative artists who have an active livelihood producing content, you're doing it in the real time, often in front of other people, live, or you're with your students. And I don't call it social media. I don't have, I primarily use Facebook. I have for the last 8 years. And what my advice to you is in this new time is to come up with as much creative product. I mean, in essence, I'm talking about disseminating information in as many ways as you can. Do not be a receiver of people's feeds. Do not be a receiver of information. Come at it with a sense of purpose. And then, so what I'm saying is, your stories tonight about that. I realize not everybody's gonna sit, you know, mouth agape listening to Jake Feinberg and Bruce Forman, you know, chuck it around. But they will be. Some people will be very enticed when I transcribe stories. So it's putting it in a print medium, because some people would rather read than listen. So you have to find a way to diversify the medium and create content that is going to be able to feed you spiritually, and then also drive people to you and figure out how to sing for your supper. But to me, it's not social media. Zuckerberg created. It's not perfect. But for a journalist, for somebody who's trying to promote exactly what we've been talking about for the last 70 minutes, it's the best thing in the world to drive consciousness once you create that community, because that community's there, and it's worldwide.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, that's my pre.
I'm going to make you proud, because what I have done is, I've got this alter ego character that I use to kind of dramatize some of my strange opinions.
Sure.
So like, and I call him Grump, and you know, like he's the guy who gets up on Facebook and yells at kids and says, "You kids, I remember when I was coming up, we practiced in private and we played in public. Remember that when you go on Facebook."
Right.
Know?
Well, I mean,
like,
and again, to me, I don't spend any time receiving on Facebook. It is.
Yeah, I know. But
you know,
I mean,
and I'm just saying, like,
you know, my kids will play and they won't play. They'll just practice. And I say, no, that's beneath you. Or, you know, I don't play somebody's transcription. Make something up yourself. That kind of stuff.
Hey, you know what? I just hold on. I just got a huge idea. I just realized the whole purpose of this set one with Bruce Forman. You got to become a full-on Dorsey to your students on Facebook and just start ripping them up.
You know, actually, you can dig this, man. I have started ever since I got locked up in quarantine.
Yeah.
It was a few weeks ago. I have started a twice-weekly TV show.
Holy cow. Are you kidding me?
Yes, it's called Grumps TV, and it's like a comedy slash
I love
reality.
this. See, this is brilliant. This is
music
brilliant.
Slash, it's like Fernwood Tonight meets I Love Lucy or something, and it's where the host is also the band, and I do commentary, comedy, and music, you know, for an hour every Wednesday and Saturday at 5:00, and then I post it all on my YouTube channel for the people that didn't get a chance to watch it. And of course, I live kind of in the country, so the internet is so bad that it seems like, you know, the hamsters are eating the wires and the rats are eating the wires.
Dude, you need to go live on Facebook with that. You need to start going live on Facebook.
I did. No, that's what it is. It's live on Facebook. But
oh, my God.
it's up on my Bruce Forman YouTube channel, so it's called Grumps TV.
Oh, my God.
And it's you know, I can't wait. I hope it keeps going because after quarantine I can start having guests and stuff, you know, and like, but yes, I'm and I have a segment called Chronic or Ironic where I kind of get into the Darwinian elements of our society, you know, like when China decided to have a moment of silence for all the corona victims, but they celebrated it by honking their car horns.
Yeah, I did. I know. I mean, I feel the same way. Yeah.
Okay, that's kind of like chronic or ironic right there, right? And then I also have another thing with some sock puppets, which is kind of like where I scream at them for transcribing in public and playing transcriptions in public and stuff, where I have like a sock puppet of the maestro and the pupil, and I just go completely nuts. I mean, I kind of
Forman, you're so far ahead of the game. I mean, I just think
I'm
that
like an Irwin Corey bebop guitar player of sorts, you know. If you don't even know who that is, but there's somebody for you to look up.
Yeah, I looked that cat. No, I got to look up that Merritt cat too. Play with Ornette.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Moffat.
Yeah. No. So listen, we'll do set 2 real soon, man. This was. I mean,
you're great, man, and I got to say, I'm a big fan. Thank you for putting this out. It's really, I mean, I've enjoyed listening to these interviews. I mean, so many of my heroes, I get a chance to hear their perspective, and you really dig deep, and you're really honest, and I also really enjoy your Facebook posts. So please, first of all, thank you for all of us who love this stuff, but please keep going with it.
Dude, it's an endless well of enlightenment thanks to cats like you, man. So bless you. Keep being creative in your own space, and just know that, as the great Todd Barkin said, you take care of the music will take care of you. So that you'll always be looked after.
Right moments.
Bright moments, Bruce. Talk to you soon, man.
All right, Jake.
Yeah,
Good night. Thank you.
Yeah, be cool. Later. Classic cat.